My mic is. Oh yeah, it is. All right. Uh, uh, Trying to see. Okay, it works. Why is it work? It is working. All right. 1 second. Alright. Yeah, you get the TV. My headphones on. Alright. Check. So, I'm not gonna lie. Last stream, I fell asleep. If I talk funny, it's because you know what I'm saying. It's cool, bro. It's cool. But yeah, last stream, I literally fell asleep on stream. Like I remember vividly. I was like, hold on, bro. I muted the mic. I don't know what I was trying to do. Like I laid my head down, woke up, stream was still on. Stream was still on. Yeah, stuff like that. So I privated the VOD. I'm not gonna lie, cause like literally 5 hours of that stream was literally just like nothing, just silence. So there's no reason for me to keep that up, honestly. You know what I'm saying? I just went ahead and took it down, bro. I made it private. I guess technically that's my longest stream now. It's 7 minutes long now. It's okay though. I'm not gonna lie, I fell asleep in the middle of the Dead Island video, which is awkward. But we're gonna finish that today. First, I gotta do this. You know, hold on, give me a second. Alright. Just gotta give me a second. Boom. Alright, there we go. Yeah, let me do this. It's very awkward, honestly. Right. I mean, okay, so because I fell asleep on it last stream, the first thing I'm gonna do is finish this Dead Rising video. It's an hour left in this. I'm gonna finish this, and then after that, I don't know what I'm gonna do. But the first thing I'm gonna do is finish this Dead Rising video. Basically, the reason I'm not starting over is because I remember what happened in the first game. Where we left off, basically, it's this dude Chuck, and I think his daughter. Yeah, and this is like Dead Rising 2. I swear, I swear I remember what was going on here. As soon as I click play, I'll remember. I just gotta get back in the zone. Let's go. I promise I will not fall asleep this time. You know, I will not fall asleep this time. You know, I'll be good. I'm not even that tired. And plus, it's a lot earlier than it was yesterday. So I'll be good. So I'm gonna finish this, and then I don't know what I'm gonna do. We'll see after I finish this. All right, let's go though. Let's go.
Katie begins to convulse.
Right, headphones work first try. That's a good sign. I feel like my headphones not working at first. Last stream was like a bad omen. I should have heated it. I've been tired on stream before, but falling asleep, that was kind of crazy. But it's cool though. Let's finish this video.
False, and Chuck fears that she is beginning to turn. Stacy assures him that it's just a side effect of the Zombrex, and shares her hope that one day a cure will be.
Okay, see. Proving I remember what's going on. The Zombrex is like the thing they take to stop them from turning into zombies.
Be found for the parasite. Stacy then reveals that a woman named Isabella Keys and Rebecca agreed to meet at a rooftop later that night to watch for TK's escape helicopter. Later, in the
Hold on. Alright, we're back. Hold on. Again, hold on, part 2. Okay, we're back, actually. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Okay, we're good. We're good. Just lock in.
Security room, Katie begins to convulse, and Chuck fears that she is beginning to turn. Stacy assures him that it's just a side effect of the Zombrex, and shares her hope that one day a cure will be found for the parasite. Stacy then reveals that a woman named Isabella Keys was looking for it. That night, Chuck and Rebecca meet at the rooftop and wait for TK's helicopter. They then see it landing atop the roof of the hotel, and they rush to get there to stop TK. The pair reach the roof of the hotel just in time to see TK loading the money into the helicopter.
TK.
As the helicopter takes off, Chuck attaches a crane hook to it and throws multiple objects into the chopper's rotors to eventually bring it down. TK survives the crash, although it knocks him out, and his money burns around him. Chuck takes TK back to the safe room, where Sullivan gives him handcuffs to secure him to a bed in the infirmary. Chuck gets one last dose of Zombrex for Katie, and Stacy informs him that help will arrive at first light.
When is Frank West coming into play, though? That's my question.
Come morning, the National Guard's anti-zombie unit, led by Sergeant Dwight Boykin, arrives in Fortune City and begins their cleanup operation. As Rebecca captures them on film, a mysterious gas begins to seep from the sewer grates, mutating the zombies into a stronger form that begin to overpower the AZU soldiers. Rebecca attempts to escape, but winds up heading underground and getting lost in the tunnels. Chuck and Stacy watch this all occur over the security cameras, and Sullivan states that another rescue attempt will occur in 24 hours if there's still signs of survivors. Unfortunately, if that also fails, Sullivan reveals that the military will firebomb the entire area to wipe out the zombies. Chuck rushes to the underground tunnels to search for Rebecca and finds her captured by Sergeant Boykin, who has gone mad from the events. Chuck is forced to fight and kill Boykin, rescuing Rebecca before carrying her back to the safe house. There, TK wakes up, revealing that he has something to do with the...
what's his name? Chuck seeming a little bit less interesting than Frank was. I'm be real.
Gas. Chuck asks him why TK framed him, with TK simply stating that he doesn't know, and that Chuck's name was just the one that they gave him. Before they can learn any more from TK, zombies begin to breach the safe house. Chuck keeps them at bay and repairs the security door, while Sullivan, the man responsible for keeping the place safe, is conspicuously absent. In the confusion, TK is able to get free, but he is found by a zombie, bitten, and subsequently infected. After the chaos clears, Sullivan reappears and states that TK had gotten the better of him and knocked him out. It's at this point that Chuck can decide to administer Zombrex to TK to ensure he pays for his crimes, or simply leave nature to take its course.
Is that like a choice
Either
you can
way,
make
a
in the
news
game?
report then states that
Oh, I
all
guess
of the
it is.
survivors in Fortune City are presumed to be dead, and the President of the United
think-
States has ordered an
He didn't mention any choices in the first game, so that must be a new thing.
immediate eradication of everything in the area. This leads Rebecca to determine that there's definitely something bigger going on besides a simple heist plot. Chuck decides to investigate the underground tunnels to hopefully learn more, despite Sullivan's attempts to stop him. There, Chuck finds the source of the gas, as well as a large, spinning device that draws zombies in close before killing them and automatically harvesting their queens. After defeating the mercenaries guarding the machine, Chuck disables it as well as shutting off the gas canisters. He then finds several researchers running this harvest who open fire on him, forcing him to kill them. In their wake, he obtains their laptop, revealing them to be employees of Phenotrans, as well as a communications device. Chuck takes these back to the safe house and reveals Phenotrans' involvement to Stacy and Rebecca. Just then, Sullivan arrives to discredit Chuck's claims, but Rebecca examines the laptop to learn Phenotrans' true goal: to create a new, massive outbreak to increase the need for Zombrex to ultimately increase their sales.
So they
Phenotrans' true goal: to create a new, massive outbreak to increase the need for Zombrex to ultimately increase their sales.
stay classy, bro.
Chuck gives Rebecca the transceiver.
So all this happening because they're trying to sell this Zombrex. Whack.
So she can call her radio station. But just as she attempts to, Chuck and Stacy are shocked as a gunshot rings out. Rebecca falls to the floor, dead, as the shooter
Wow.
is revealed
West.
to be Sullivan.
Oh,
Sullivan then takes the laptop and transceiver, and Chuck realizes that he's been working for Phenotrans all along. Sullivan points his weapon towards Chuck and Katie, attempting to finish the cleanup, but Stacy knocks it out of his hand with a baseball bat. Chuck grabs the fallen gun, but Sullivan scurries off before Chuck can hit him. Chuck races to follow Sullivan, eventually finding him atop the rooftop of a casino. After Chuck accuses Sullivan of killing innocent
Hey,
people
Chuck.
just for money, Sullivan refutes
Chuck's been wearing the same jacket this whole game. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, it is the apocalypse. I'll cut him some slack.
After Chuck accuses Sullivan of killing innocent people just for money, Sullivan refutes his claim by stating that Phenotrans needed to use the event to breed and harvest a massive amount of queens. Using Isabella's process, the queens could then be used to create a consistent supply of Zombrex to combat the growing number of outbreaks happening around the country. Fortune City was seen as a small sacrifice for the greater good of the country, and Chuck, having lost his wife in the Vegas outbreak, was the perfect scapegoat. Still angered by Sullivan and Phenotrans' actions, Chuck attacks Sullivan. After a grueling battle, Chuck defeats Sullivan, but his transport plane arrives and attacks Chuck. As Sullivan attempts to extract, Chuck cuffs his lower half to the roof. When the plane drags him away, Sullivan's body is split in half,
Wow.
killing him instantly.
All right.
Chuck then grabs the transceiver
Good stuff.
and calls Channel 6 Action News, Rebecca's former employer, and promises the story of a lifetime as long as they send a rescue chopper immediately.
Wow. So both games end with the main character getting saved by a helicopter.
If Chuck had given
Nice connection, bro.
TK the
I don't know why I'm talking to myself, bro.
Zombrex,
My fault, bro.
he returns to the safe room to find Stacy and
sure I'm
Katie
not
missing. Chuck then hears from TK and learns that he had taken Stacy and Katie hostage. After TK mocks Chuck by making him get various items of no importance, Chuck finds TK and fights him hand to hand, eventually killing him and rescuing Katie and Stacy before they all
Chuck might be
leave the
like
arena
that.
together.
Chuck might be like that.
In the other, more likely scenario, if Chuck allowed TK to turn into a zombie, Chuck returns to find Stacy and Katie safe. After escorting them to the Channel 6 chopper, Chuck realizes Katie's backpack is missing. When he returns to get it, the zombified TK attacks Chuck.
Really?
Stacy attempts to help, but Chuck simply throws her the backpack and instructs her to take care of Katie. Stacy reluctantly agrees and leaves Chuck behind, returning to the helicopter, which takes off, leading Katie and Stacy to safety.
See, okay, it's crazy because, okay, look, watch Case West, whatever this is. I guess this is like DLC. I bet this is gonna make it so somehow he survived that. But they did the same thing with the first game, because the first game implied that the main character died too, and then they had that comic where it was like, nah, he was screaming for no reason. He was good the whole time. Watch them do that same thing here. Watch.
As Chuck continues to fight off the zombified TK, he is suddenly assisted by an extremely unlikely party. None other than Frank West. Yep. Frank knocks out the attacking...
Yep. So this was DLC.
Zombie and immediately recognizes Chuck as the one supposedly responsible for the outbreak. Chuck proclaims his innocence, stating that Phenotrans are the ones behind everything, including Rebecca Chang's death. Taken aback by the news of Rebecca's murder, Frank agrees to take Chuck to the nearby Phenotrans research facility where they can hopefully find proof of the company's involvement as well as Chuck's innocence. Frank injects himself with a dose of Zombrex, and the pair head off to the facility. After reaching and scoping out the facility, Chuck and Frank infiltrate it through the air ducts, quickly finding it, too, to be overrun with zombies. The pair are able to fight through various zombies and Phenotrans security to a safe room, where Frank receives a message from his source and friend, who started the outbreak inside the facility in order to distract security. The source prints them a map and claims that if the two can enter access codes in various places in the facility, they can hack the secure networks and download information for them. Furthermore, the source informs them that if they can get into the director's office, they can find evidence that will clear Chuck's name. The pair get into the director's office and find proof that Phenotrans caused the Fortune City outbreak in order to harvest queens to make more Zombrex. Their operation was covered up and blamed on Chuck, as they publicly claim the drug is synthetic. When they return to the safe room, they find a message from Frank's source, who claims to have the rest of their data, but is currently trapped in a secure lab. The pair blast their way through the locked doors to reach the lab, where they finally reach Frank's anonymous source, his old friend, Isabella Keyes. Frank is initially angered that Isabella is working for Phenotrans, but she explains that it was either that or jail. Wow. Furthermore, she claims that she had gotten close to developing a cure, but her research was stolen by the company. Isabella asks them to help her escape to continue her research, but suddenly, Phenotrans director Marion Mallon interrupts them from her office overlooking the lab, telling Isabella that that will never happen. A group of Phenotrans soldiers then rush in and hold the three at gunpoint, but Isabella is able to run off. She quickly returns with a gun, killing some of the soldiers holding up Frank and Chuck. She is soon tossed aside, however, by the arriving Harjit Singh. Who? Isabella slides Frank a USB flash drive before she's carried off by Phenotrans security. Singh unfortunately crushes the drive beneath his boot and begins a battle with Chuck and Frank. The two work together in combat and are eventually able to bring down the giant of a man, causing him to break open a tank of queens, which proceed to sting him to death. After the battle, Frank and Chuck speak with Mallon, with the journalist noting that the director looks like she could use Zombrex herself, considering some of her face has rotted. Mallon then reveals that she was able to complete a cure using Isabella's research to use on herself, but refuses to release it, as it would not be in the company's best interest. Wow. Mallon warns them that since they've destroyed the results of the Fortune City harvest, another will have to occur soon. She then leaves, taking Isabella with her before setting the facility to self-destruct to destroy any evidence. Chuck frantically tries to find any information on the cure so he can use it on Katie, but Frank convinces him that it's too late.
If you're watching this, Dead Rising or Resident Evil.
And they must escape before the facility explodes. The pair are able to evacuate safely with the evidence, and they discuss the possibility of a cure as they overlook the burning Phenotrans facility. As Frank realizes he left his Zombrex inside, Chuck tosses him a box, stating that the world needs Frank West. As he left his Zombrex inside, Chuck tosses him a box, stating that the world needs Frank West.
They do. So he's going to be the main
10 years later, we find Nick Ramos, a young man working as a mechanic for Wrench-O-Rama in Los Perdidos, California. Nick takes an assignment from his boss, Rhonda Kresge, to drop off a car for a customer. Nick sees a young, blonde woman and, believing her to be the customer, gives her the car. As she drives off, however, the real customer rushes out and reveals that she had conned him. Nick grabs onto the car as she drives off, but both of them are surprised to see that the city is currently in the middle of an outbreak. The woman is forced to plow through a sea of zombies, but eventually crashes into a pole. Luckily, Nick had previously strapped a blowtorch under the passenger seat of the car, and he proceeds to use it to protect himself and the woman from the zombie attack. The pair are then joined by a truck driver named Dick Baker, who uses his own flamethrower to clear the area. Dick notices that Nick has a tattoo of a 12 on his neck, but Nick admits that he doesn't know why he has it. It's just always been there. The woman finally introduces herself as Annie, and the three attempt to leave the city. However, they're soon stopped by the ZDC, Zombie Defense and Control, who inform them that the city is quarantined and they cannot leave. When Annie starts to go off on an officer about their surveillance practices and Zombrex chips, which have replaced the injections as means of administering the drug, he accuses her of being an illegal, or someone who refused the government's mandate to get a chip implanted.
Wow.
Annie asks Dick for help, and he creates a distraction with his flamethrower, allowing them to escape.
A distraction.
Luckily, Ron...
Is that a distraction? It looks like he's lighting them on fire.
It's a distraction with his flamethrower, allowing them to escape. Luckily, Rhonda arrives driving a semi-truck to protect the trio from a group of zombies, but she wrecks the truck in the process. Luckily, they're right by a diner, where the four decide to take up shelter. In the wake of the outbreak, Hunter Thibodeau, captain of the motorcycle gang the Kings of Chaos, breaks out of jail. Hoping to get back at the rival gang who framed him and got him locked up in the first place, Hunter heads out in search of his fellow gang member, Torque.
What game is this? Dead Rising. Okay, so this is DLC.
Fortunately, Hunter instead finds his old gang,
a cough drop,
now taken over by the man who framed him, named Spider. Hunter finds Torque, now exiled from the gang, who helps him build a custom bike to take down Spider and reclaim the Kings of Chaos. After building the bike, Hunter assassinates Spider's 3 lieutenants. However, when Hunter returns to Torque, he finds him dead, murdered by Spider as revenge. Hunter then finds Torque's stolen custom motorcycle and takes it to ambush Spider. The two then fight man-to-man, with Hunter winning, finally killing Spider and getting his revenge, reclaiming his place as head of the gang. Now day 3 of the outbreak, Nick Ramos searches for a way out of the city, but is unsuccessful.
Hey, we're in Dead Rising 3 now. Nice. Is there a 4th one? Or is it... There is a 4th one. Wow.
Escaping from a horde of zombies, Nick is knocked out, but he awakens just in time to see an airplane crash into the city. Nick...
I'm not gonna lie, I thought the end of the second one, the DLC for the second one, implied that Frank West was gonna be the main character. I don't know, maybe I'm dumb though.
Then crosses through the wreckage to return to the...
felt like that's what it was implying.
Diner, where he regroups with Rhonda, Annie, and Dick. After Annie administers herself with a dose of Zombrex, Rhonda insults her for not getting a Zombrex chip implanted like everyone else. Annie claims that since the government can track the chips via GPS, those implanted are simply prisoners. Dick accidentally turns on the jukebox, and the ensuing noise attracts the horde of zombies to the diner. While a group of survivors that were already in the diner are killed, Nick and his 3 friends are able to escape safely and reach Rancho-Rama, where they take refuge.
Okay.
Inside the garage, the group find and dispose of a zombie. They notice that the zombie had one of the Zombrex chips, implying that for some reason, the chip implants in the city have stopped working, allowing the citizens to turn into the zombies that now roam the streets. Nick finds a walkie-talkie on the zombie and speaks with a man named Jamie Flint, a survivor who's currently holed up in a ZDC surveillance room. Jamie then makes it his main goal to inform Nick about various other survivors in the city so he can help them reach shelter. On a television news broadcast, the group learns that the United States President, Sonia Paddock, is currently missing in the city, and a rescue mission is underway. A press conference with Secretary of Defense John Hemlock then begins, in which Hemlock blames the outbreak on an unknown, unchipped illegal. He then states that in 6 days, once the president and all other survivors are safe, the military will deploy a large incendiary bomb to wipe out the entire city.
Resident Evil? What Resident Evil game was that? I think that was 2, right? That was 2. I think 2 and 3 were like taking place at like the same time with different characters, and they were both trying to get out of the city before the bomb exploded.
The newscaster then implores any survivors to get to a military quarantine station for evacuation. After reinforcing a van for transport, Nick and Rhonda make their way to the nearest quarantine station. However, when they arrive, they find it overrun and taken over by the Kings of Chaos Motorcycle Club, led by Hunter Thibodeau. When the gang takes Rhonda captive, Nick is forced to fight and subsequently kill Hunter. While he's able to rescue Rhonda, he is overwhelmed with the guilt of taking another human life. Rhonda talks him out of it and convinces him that he had no choice in order to survive. Very shortly afterward, Dick reunites with them, and the trio come across Diego, a soldier in the military who was with the president at the museum but was forced to run, going AWOL in the process. Diego tells the group about a plane by the docks that Nick could fix up so they can fly out of the city before the bombs drop. As Diego searches his pocket for the plane keys, he drops them on the ground. Nick goes to pick them up, but as he bends down, a zombie bites his hand.
It's bit.
Diego, Rhonda, and Dick rush to the plane while Nick quickly makes his way to a crematorium in the Ingleton district in hopes to find an emergency dose of Zombrex to halt his infection.
All right.
After traveling through the sewers, Nick reaches the crematorium where he meets a mobster named Gary Finkel, currently working a job for an unknown kingpin. Nick agrees to help Gary get inside the crematorium so he can retrieve a body for his boss in exchange for Gary's help in finding the Zombrex. Once both men are inside, Nick helps Gary reach cold storage, where they search for a body under the name Nicole White. They find her in the morgue, and Nick initially mistakes her for Annie, as their resemblance is strong.
Wow.
After realizing Nicole is not his friend, Nick spots the Zombrex cabinet, which is unfortunately completely empty.
Wow.
Nick then asks Gary to put him out of his misery before he can turn, but as the man attempts to shoot him, he fails, twice, wasting his last bullet. Gary quickly notices that it might not be necessary, however, as Nick's bite wound is mysteriously healing itself extremely rapidly, something Gary...
Right, so we got plot armor. Is he like... I'm gonna let the story play out.
He admits that he's never seen or heard of before. After Nick decides that he won't be needing the Zombrex after all, he helps Gary deliver the body to his boss at a nearby nightclub. After Nick delivers the body, Gary soon learns that it was not who his boss was looking for. Remembering that Nick mentioned Nicole's body looked like someone he knew, Gary asks him to bring Annie back to the club, promising fuel for the plane in exchange.
Okay.
Nick heads to the warehouse by the docks to consult with the others, and when he arrives, Dick notices that Nick and Diego both have tattoos of numbers on their necks, with Diego's bearing the number 49. Nick simply states that they grew up together in an orphanage and have had the tattoos as long as they can remember. The group come to the agreement that turning Annie over to the unknown boss in exchange for the fuel is the best course of action. Nick then heads to the nearby illegal gathering point to search for Annie. Around this time, special operations soldiers fly into the city, including Commander Adam Kane. Kane's directive, directly from John Hemlock, is to neutralize all unlawful citizens, including the President of the United States, who the Secretary of Defense has claimed betrayed the country by going soft on illegals and causing the outbreaks across the nation. Kane's helicopter is shot down, and he's forced to rush to the wreckage to recover the chopper's black box so his orders don't get leaked.
A different game.
After retrieving the black box, Kane's goal switches back to finding the president. Meanwhile, an illegal named Angel
That's a very short DLC. It's odd.
Quijano has
It was like an OVA.
been tasked by another named Doug to find supplies. After finding more and more innocents slaughtered by the military, she learns that the military is making their way to Sunset High School, the illegals' current headquarters. Angel reaches the school and helps fight off the intruders with Doug before the pair take off to establish a new base of operations at a nearby communications tower. Angel helps Doug clear the tower of any zombies before retrieving some supplies to keep them safe and alive. After, Angel and Doug fight a group of Spec Ops soldiers and learn that the survivors are being taken to cold storage for some kind of experiment. Angel goes there to help those captured escape, and after freeing them, she waits atop the roof of the Burgess Dawson Hotel to provide a distraction.
That's why it's called Angel Dust. Oh, it's Fallen Angel. I don't know why I thought it said. Okay. It's awkward.
To allow them to get to the tower safely. Angel then simply awaits Spec Ops' arrival. Nick finds the illegal...
See, it's confusing. Oh, you know what it probably is? Hold on. Yeah, so this gets continued. It's just the order. It's just the order of where they had to put it. So Operation Broken Eagle's there. I was wondering, the DLC felt short, you know? Oh, I guess that's all of Fallen Angel, but Operation Broken Eagle gets continued. That must just be like the prologue of it. I was wondering why it felt so short.
Hideout at the tower, but as he enters, he falls into a trap and is questioned by Doug, along with the group's leader, Ronald Red Jackson. Annie arrives and vouches for Nick, and he asks her to go with him to Ingleton to show her something. Annie immediately sees through his ruse and realizes Nick just wants to take her to the guy who's looking for her. Nick admits that he's just trying to get fuel for the plane, and Red offers to find some if Nick helps them instead. Red then claims that the government isn't saving survivors, but rather killing them off. He then states that if Nick helps sabotage the government's operations, he's got himself a deal. While destroying some equipment, Nick is drugged and captured by a psychopathic doctor named Albert and disposes of him before returning to the tower. There, Red receives word that Angel had previously learned of a recording of the attacks on civilians on a computer at the police station. Nick volunteers to go find the footage.
I don't think Frank West coming back, bro. That's tough. I low-key liked Frank West the most out of all these main characters. Nick definitely, just like from this like timeline, he seems like the most boring, I'm gonna be honest. Because Chuck was cool, he just wasn't as cool as Frank. Frank's still top dog, honestly, and Nick is just like, I don't know, bro, just Nick.
While Annie and Red head off to find Angel. When Nick arrives at the station, he sees Sergeant Hilda Schmittendorf retrieving a USB flash drive of the camera recordings. After Nick watches Hilda kill 2 survivors in cold blood, he's forced to fight her and her men. After successfully killing all of them, including Hilda, Nick is able to retrieve the flash drive.
Hold on, bro. I'm not gonna let them get past that like that, bro. Why did he have to fall like that?
After successfully killing all of them, including Hilda, Nick is able to retrieve the
bro? Is this type of game, bro? Why did he fall right there?
flash drive. Nick then rushes to the roof of the Burgess Dawson Hotel,
Did that save his fall?
where Red and Annie have discovered Angel's dead body. Nick hands the flash drive over to Red, who tells Nick that he'll get the fuel for the plane. The pair then agree to meet back at the tower in a couple of hours. Around this time, Commander Adam Kane heads to the museum to search for the president. There, Kane slaughters Diego's former unit, finding a GPS tracker that gives him the president's location. After fighting through her security, Kane secures the president and takes her back to his base of operations. There, Kane receives his final orders to destroy the helicopter's black box. Nick returns to the tower to meet with Red, but finds that he's early. However, Gary Finkel suddenly jumps out and holds Nick and Annie at gunpoint, admitting that he had been following Nick in order to find...
I could tell something was wrong about him, bro. He don't look like a good guy.
Annie's location. As Gary tries to take Annie captive, however, Spec Ops soldiers storm the tower and take the illegals, including Annie, while Nick...
who he reminds me of?
Spec Ops soldiers...
He reminds me of the... What's that movie? Bolt? He reminds me of the hamster from Bolt. I think it was a hamster. I don't know. Might have been durable.
Storm the tower and take the illegals, including Annie, while Nick is knocked out. Red and Doug arrive later and wake Nick, who tells them that the others were taken away by Spec Ops. Nick and Red devise a plan to cut power to Spec Ops' base of operations, and Nick sneaks inside. There, Nick witnesses a video call between Dr. Marion Mallon of Phenotrans and General Hemlock. Suddenly, a soldier brings in the president, who is forcefully injected with the zombie parasite. As she's taken away, Mallon reveals that she is searching for Diego and will not allow Hemlock to bomb the city until she finds him. Furthermore, it's revealed that Mallon and Hemlock were behind the Los Perdidos outbreak, using some kind of radiation to deactivate the Zombrex chips in the area. Nearby, Adam Kane prepares to destroy them.
I'm low-key wanting to know what where Frank. I gotta let Frank West go. I'm be honest, because this is 2021. This is 10 years, bro. That's 10 years since he was last here, bro. I gotta let him go. He's probably not kicking no more in this timeline.
Black box, but before he can, the zombified president is brought before him. When the president attacks another soldier, Kane is forced to kill her. Kane then tells his superiors that he destroyed the black box, but in reality, he left it intact.
Has there ever been a character in a TV show, game, movie named Kane that was a good guy? You gotta think about that. I'm really thinking, I'm trying to think of one. I really can't. But I just do.
Nick finds the illegals captured from the tower, as well as Gary.
Was that? That was like a 5-second segment.
Adam Kane prepares to destroy the black box, but before he can, the zombified president is brought before him. When the president attacks another soldier, Kane is forced to kill her. Kane then tells his superiors that he destroyed the black box, but in reality, he left it intact. Nick finds the illegals captured from the tower, as well as Gary, and
Nick just seems lame, bro.
Sets them all free, defeating Adam Kane in the process. Red arrives with a getaway van and creates a distraction so the group can get to it. Nick doesn't allow Gary to get in the van with Annie, but he does allow him to run off on his own. Red then regroups with Nick and shows him a wanted flyer that's being placed around, offering a reward for information on anyone with a numerical tattoo on their neck, claiming those who have it are part of a terrorist cell. Nick claims to have no idea what it's about, and Red agrees to meet with him at a karaoke bar later that night, as soon as he makes sure the illegals are safe. As they part, Red holds up to his end of the deal and tells Nick...
I swear the graphics look better than they did earlier. Oh, maybe not.
Nick where the fuel for the plane is being kept.
Do they? Nah, they look the same. They look the same.
Nick heads to retrieve the fuel, witnessing a new mutation of zombie with a nest of queens covering its head. Nonetheless, Nick gets in a car with the fuel in its trunk and brings it back to the warehouse with the plane. After he drops it off, however, Rhonda reveals that Diego had frantically left, with the plane keys still on him. As Rhonda continues to work on repairing the plane, Nick heads to the museum, believing Diego was trying to return to his unit. Nick reaches the museum and finds Diego, now snapped under the pressure of the situation and suffering a psychotic break. Nick is forced to fight him, eventually defeating him and snapping him out of his episode. Afterwards, Diego shows Nick the zombie exhibit of the museum, detailing
this series is really not about zombies like that. It's about like how they try to manipulate the zombies into their own benefit. That's what I'm realizing. That's kind of cool. I feel like that's how most. Is that how most? I feel like that's not how most zombie stories go, is it? Usually, I feel like it's usually, and when I say usually, I mean out of the like 2 or 3 zombie stories I know, I feel like it's usually not that much what's it called? Like meaning behind the zombies. Like it's not like trying to make a point or anything. It's just like zombies. You know what I'm saying? Like zombies just start showing up and doing stuff.
the history of the various outbreaks over the years, including Frank West in Willamette and Chuck Green in Fortune City. Also featured in the exhibit is Carlito Keys, as well as his history with his sister, Isabella. Strangely, however, Diego notices a pattern on one of the images of a zombie that started one of the outbreaks, a tattoo of the number 4 on its neck.
Yep, I knew that would
Diego
come back.
then admits that the key to the plane was stolen by muggers, forcing the pair to retrieve it. Afterwards, Nick and Diego return to the plane, which Rhonda is able to fully repair after Nick helps her retrieve some final parts. With the plane now functional, Rhonda reveals that she doesn't plan to leave with them.
Okay.
After the events of the last few days, Rhonda realized the mistakes of her past and elects to stay behind to find her ex-husband and patch things up while she still has the chance.
Stay behind.
Nick tearfully hugs Rhonda goodbye before leaving the warehouse with Dick and Diego to search for Annie and the others. Just as they exit, however, the group are ambushed and captured by the military, who quickly knock them out and subdue them. When Nick awakens, he finds himself strapped down to a bed, beside Diego, who is strapped down to his own. Above, Marion Mallon watches from an observation deck, referring to the pair as the Little Orphans.
There she goes.
Suddenly, Mallon starts a test to activate Diego in order to determine which of them is the one. The scientists nearby then start shooting Diego with a laser, and the man is killed as various parasites and queens burst out of him. In the commotion, Nick is able to break free and escape the test chamber. He is soon met by Isabella Keys, still under the employ of Phenotrans.
I'm sorry, I'm locked in.
Nick initially meets Isabella with hostility over her starting everything back at Willamette, but she insists that the world has been lied to about her, before implying that Nick is immune to the parasites. Nick demands to know more, but Mallon interrupts them, activating mechanical loaders
I get it.
to attack Nick as Isabella narrowly escapes. After Nick disables the machines, he is able to escape the lab as it begins to collapse around him. Mallon is caught in the wreckage and unable to stop him, but afterwards, General Hemlock arrives in the flesh to meet with her. After making it back to the city, Nick goes to the karaoke bar to find Annie, so he can take her to the plane to get out of Los Perdidos. Surprisingly, he finds Gary outside, stopping him from getting in.
Dude, bro.
Gary reveals that he was able to trap Annie inside the bar so his boss could finally retrieve her, but soon has a drunken breakdown over the loss of his wife, who coincidentally happens to be Rhonda. Nick rushes back to the garage and finds Rhonda, laying on the ground with her arms severed off after she was tortured by those searching for Nick. Nick helps treat her wound and replace her arm with a prosthetic, then takes her to the karaoke bar, where she reunites with her estranged ex-husband. Now, with a
She got
reason to live,
superpowers now.
Gary lets Nick into the bar to find Annie. Inside, Nick rescues Annie, and the pair rush back to the plane, where they find Dick, but all other survivors are missing. Red arrives with Isabella, then rushes off to check for the others.
I'm not gonna lie. I low-key dozed off for a second. I'm gonna back up for a second. I'm not falling. Yo, on God, I'm not gonna fall asleep this time. That last stream was a fluke. I don't know how that happened. That's never happening again.
Estranged ex-husband.
I won't let it.
Now, with a reason to live, Gary lets Nick into the bar to find Annie. Inside, Nick rescues Annie, and the pair rush back to the plane, where they find Dick, but all other survivors are missing. Red arrives with Isabella, then rushes off to check for the others. Isabella then tells Nick and Annie about Santa Cabeza, as well as the zombie time bomb orphans that Carlito sent to America, Diego being one of them. Isabella finally reveals that Carlito didn't want to create something unstoppable, however, so he made a single orphan carry an immunity instead of the parasite.
So he's basically the chosen one. Like, unironic, he's the chosen one. He's the one they chose to have immunity.
That orphan, they soon realize, was number 12, now known as Nick Ramos. Isabella warns Nick that Dr. Malin only wants the cure for herself and will do anything to get her hands on him. Red then calls for them to meet him outside, but when they do, a trap is sprung. A Spec Ops soldier throws Isabella and Annie inside of a shipping crate. Red then appears and reveals that he intends to turn Nick in for the reward he saw in the flyer, threatening Isabella and Annie's life unless he goes willingly. Nick refuses and destroys the crane holding the shipping crate, allowing Isabella and Annie to run away. Nick then fights Red one-on-one, eventually defeating the illegal trader as Annie uses a crane to drop a crate on him, finally killing him. Nick and Annie then reunite, and Nick takes the Spec Ops soldier's transceiver to speak to Hemlock, convincing him to extend the firebombing another 24 hours. Nick and Annie then share a kiss, finally feeling safe. As they hold each other, however, a car pulls up.
Who is that?
Gary's boss
Frank.
and the man looking for Annie is
Frank.
finally revealed to be
Frank.
none other than
It's
Chuck
Chuck.
Green.
It's Chuck.
Annie then rushes over to him, and Chuck
second
is
best
finally
friend, wow.
relieved to be reunited with his daughter,
Wow.
Katie Ann
Almost
Green.
as good as Frank.
Chuck reveals that he found their
Oh my God.
location from Gary, who was in the car with Rhonda. Isabella reunites with Chuck as well and informs him that Nick holds the key to a cure. With the group finally reunited, they all rush back to board the plane. Knowing that they all won't fit, Gary and Rhonda volunteer to stay behind to help any straggling survivors. Nick gives Rhonda another tearful goodbye and boards the plane with the rest of the survivors. As they prepare to take off, however, they intercept a radio transmission, hearing Hemlock mention some kind of collection that will place the largest weapon of mass destruction known to man squarely in their hands. Isabella theorizes that they must be planning to collect the substance the mutated king zombies give off to create some kind of massive weapon.
Okay,
Nick and
they're
Chuck
losing
exit the
their
plane and work
with the
together to
terminology,
chase
but I'm
Hemlock's
still
plane
there.
in order to stop him from collecting the king zombies. The pair soon spot Hemlock and Malin arguing on a roof outside of their plane about their priorities. Hemlock wishes to capture the kings in order to control the start and end of outbreaks wherever they wish, but Malin wishes to instead focus on finding Nick so they can make the cure. Hemlock tries to convince Malin to give up her search for a cure, but she refuses, causing him to pick her up and throw her off of the rooftop,
Yeah, she's cool.
instantly killing the director of Phenotrans.
Wow.
Hemlock boards his plane, which begins to release drones that collect the king zombies. After stopping several drones, Nick grabs onto one of them, which takes him up inside of the plane. He reaches the cockpit and attacks Hemlock, causing the plane to crash during the scuffle. Nick is then forced to fight Hemlock, and after he defeats the Secretary of Defense, Nick kicks him into one of the still spinning propellers of the plane, eviscerating him.
Wow.
Nick then sees the plane flying overhead, circling around to pick him up
I like this.
to finally
I like
escape Los Perdidos to create the long-awaited cure for the zombie parasite.
Wow. So they're creating a cure.
At some point
So how do we get from them creating a cure to Dead Rising 4?
before Nick is picked up, he finds an infected ZDC agent named Brad Park and injects him with Zombrex to save his life. Nick then runs off, expressing his disgust over the ZDC killing survivors instead of saving them.
Wow.
Believing this to be a lie, Brad sets off to figure out why Nick would think that. First, however, Brad delivers a truck of Zombrex to a doctor named Cora at the nearby hospital. The pair quickly realize that the Zombrex chips in the area have stopped working, and Cora asks Brad to bring some back so she can try to determine the root cause.
Again, I think.
Brad is able to extract some chips and bring them back to Cora, who proceeds to examine them while Brad rushes off to investigate a nearby explosion. Brad helps some survivors escape from remaining biker gang members and returns to Cora, who has since determined that the chips were purposefully disabled remotely. She then suggests that Brad find a hacker named Nelson, who had previously noticed something fishy with the chips. Brad finds Nelson and asks him to track some signals. In order to do so, the pair have to collect some equipment, and once they do, Nelson determines that the
I gotta lock him. Let me sit up. Hold on.
signal was a military frequency coming from the mayor's mansion. Brad finds the transmitter guarded by Spec Ops, and after he disables it, he finds information about a secret research lab, signed off by General Hemlock as well as Marion Mallon.
Okay.
Hoping to figure out their connection, Brad heads to the lab, where he finds the result of the test on Diego, as well as information about a prison camp. Now questioning the ZDC's motives, Brad cuts out his own Zombrex chip before heading to the prison camp.
Whoa.
There, Brad finds Adam Kane, just barely alive after his battle with Nick. Adam is clutching the black box, imploring Brad that he must make things right. When Brad asks him to explain, Adam
Kane might be that guy. Kane might be that guy.
reveals that Hemlock was behind the death of the president, handing him the black box as proof. Brad then hands Adam his pistol, allowing him to prevent himself from turning.
Wow.
With the black box in his possession, Brad returns to a ZDC truck, which he uses to pick up the remaining survivors in the city, including Rhonda, Gary, and Nelson. Brad then drives the truck out of the city, where a helicopter successfully extracts them. As they finally escape Los Perdidos, Brad Park looks at his ZDC badge and throws it out of the helicopter.
Why? Why would you
At
do
some
that?
later point, Isabella Keys returns to a Phenotrans facility and finds a security recording of her speaking with Marion Mallon. As it turns out, it was Isabella's idea to cause the Los Perdidos outbreak in order to suss out the immune orphan so she could create a cure and clear hers and her brother's name.
Everyone, you notice everyone just trying to use the zombie apocalypse to come up. That's what I'm taking away from this. I wonder if it'd be like in real life if that happened, bro. Nobody seems to care that there's like zombies running around. They're more worried about like how can I make money off this, bro. That's kind of crazy. You want to play?
She then destroys the footage, effectively covering her tracks. A few months later, in September of 2021, Frank West, now working as a college professor, is picked up by one of his students, Vic Chu, under false pretenses, and taken to the outskirts of Willamette, Colorado. Vic West, now a few months later.
So they brought Frank West back for Dead Rising 4.
In September of 2021, Frank West, now working as a college professor, is picked up by one of his students, Vic Chu, under false pretenses, and taken to the outskirts of Willamette, Colorado. Frank is initially angered, but Vic explains that there's some kind of secret military base where a source informed her that illegal human experiments are being held, and she needs his photojournalism skills to capture it. Frank reluctantly agrees, and the pair reach the base.
Let's go, Frank.
Frank takes the lead, and the pair sneak inside, spotting human captives. Even worse, however, are the zombies Frank finds and must fight through. The pair soon reach a lab, seemingly used for zombie research. The presence of the zombies, as well as Zombrex in the lab, confuses Vic, as the parasite cure has effectively rendered everyone immune. Frank watches a surveillance video in which a researcher named Dr. Blackburn reports her findings on treatment of zombies to someone named Fontana. While Blackburn is happy with their improvements, Fontana urges that it must...
If this video has taught me anything, I'm not trusting her. I'm not. She got something going on.
Fontana. While Blackburn is happy with their improvements, Fontana urges that it must be perfect, and quickly. Vic and Frank continue, finding more and more test subjects, both living and dead. Vic shoots one of the subjects to put them out, both living and dead. Vic shoots one of the subjects to put them out of their misery, but the sound of the gunshot gives them away. The two argue over whether they were there to observe and report or to actually help those in danger, but are quickly forced to separate as they each find a way out. When Frank escapes the base, he reaches Vic's car just in time to watch her speed away, leaving him stranded.
So she just leaves him. So isn't she the one that brought him here? So she brought him and left him.
While Frank escapes, he is accused of assaulting unarmed guards, and a countrywide manhunt begins. Months later, during Black Friday, a new outbreak mysteriously occurs inside of the recently built Willamette Memorial Megaplex, a massive mall built after the town's original was torn down. In January of the next year, 2022, Colonel Brad Park, still an agent of the ZDC, enters the classroom of a wedding photography teacher named Hank East. Seeing through this masterfully crafted alias, Brad determines Hank to be Frank West. Brad informs Frank of the ongoing outbreak in Willamette, catching him by surprise as the news has been so far covered up.
Wow.
Brad asks Frank for his help, revealing the truth behind the outbreak, as well as the research base Frank had investigated. But Frank refuses, given that his past attempts to expose the government's involvement in previous outbreaks only led to him getting professionally buried.
Yep.
Brad reasons that in the past he had insufficient evidence, but this time he'll make sure Frank gets more than enough. Brad then reveals that Vic is still on the case, and Frank reluctantly agrees to help out of a desire not only to clear his name, but to beat Vic to breaking the story. Brad and Frank board an aircraft into Willamette, but as they approach, Fontana orders one of her men to shoot it down, sending it crashing into the megaplex. Frank and Brad survive the crash and explore the mall, finding a hotel with a door leading to the maintenance hallway. Frank and Brad then go their separate ways, with Frank working on catching up to Vic and Brad checking the town's relief efforts. While Frank investigates, he learns that these new zombies are able to infect and turn humans into zombies within moments, when the process used to take days. After finding some of Vic's notes that she left behind weeks prior, Frank learns that the outbreak started at the front entrance to the mall, which a private military company called Obscurus was guarding. Frank makes his way through the medieval village, defeating his first group of maniacs on his way. On his way to the entrance, Frank is forced to fight through mercenary forces, but doesn't find much information about what or who caused the outbreak. Coincidentally, Frank is met by another reporter named Darcy, who tells him that his girlfriend, Paula, is an expert on Obscurus. Frank exits the mall into Willamette and meets with Paula at the City Hall archives. She tells Frank that Obscurus left the area less than an hour ago, and he investigates to learn that the PMC have been following something dangerous and destructive. Frank follows a clue leading him to a drugstore, and he investigates an outpost to find that
this game probably didn't come out that long ago. Unless Dead Rising 3 took place in the future, because this says 2021. Well, I mean, I might as well look it up. Hold on. Okay. So the third one came out in 2013. And then the fourth one came out in 2016. Alright. So I'm not gonna lie, 2016 graphics, these are pretty good. I mean, not that 2016 is a long time ago. I'm not gonna lie. That's really not long ago at all. It feels like that's only four years ago, even though it's 8. It's crazy that it's 8 years. Let me stop chatting and finish the vid.
Obscurus was definitely hunting something with large game tranquilizers, but Frank determines that whatever it was must have been hunting them back. He overhears a transmission on a radio about a current mission being aborted, with the speaker instructing everyone to fall back to the fire hall. Frank gets there and finds Paula outside, having her act as lookout as he sneaks inside the Obscurus stronghold. Inside, Frank eavesdrops on a conversation between Vic and Fontana, revealed to be the leader of Obscurus. Vic claims that she has information about a group that had previously attacked Obscurus and will hand it over in exchange for 30 minutes with Fontana, off the record. Just then, an Obscurus soldier brings Darcy before Fontana, claiming he was messing with their computers. Fontana has him placed under watch before agreeing to answer Vic's question.
This game seems like it gets less and less about zombies as it goes on.
As the pair prepare to leave in a truck, Fontana reveals that she knew Frank was hiding, sicking her soldiers on him as she leaves with Vic. Frank survives the ambush and follows Obscurus to learn more and hopefully rescue Darcy. While Frank follows them to a nearby dam, however, he is shot by a tranquilizer dart and passes out. When he awakens, Frank finds himself captured by not Obscurus, but instead angry locals. One of them, Tom, reveals to Frank that they had taken Vic in, but she went off and told Obscurus information about them, leading to a group being ambushed. Frank agrees to help in exchange for assistance from their engineer, Hammond, on getting into the dam. Frank thwarts the ambush at the junior high school and finds Hammond. After defeating all of the Obscurus forces in the area, Frank asks Hammond for her help with getting into the dam. Hammond gives Frank a ring of keys and tells him to enter through a service door on the side of the dam. On his way there, Frank gets a call from Brad, who has determined that the strain causing the current outbreak traces.
I like to rank how good I think these games are, because I haven't played any of these games. I like to rank how good I think they are off like how he tells the story. If I had to rank how good I think they are, I'm just guessing, I would say 1 first, probably 2 second. Loki, the way he's telling 4, 3, okay. Loki, I'm Loki thinking it might be 2, 1, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, just in order. I don't like this UI. This looks like a UI from a bad game, I'm gonna be honest.
Traces back to Santa Cabeza, but is mutated to be immune to both the cure and to Zombrex. After reaching and entering the dam, Frank finds Darcy tied up inside. Frank examines the dam to learn whatever Obscurus is hunting is called Calder. Frank begins to feel the ground shake, and he leaves Darcy tied up before searching for the trap that is supposedly holding this Calder. Frank arrives slightly too late, however, as he watches Obscurus load the trap onto a truck and drive away. Frank is then forced to don a giant cybernetic exosuit to fight through Obscurus forces. After Frank defeats them, he pursues the convoy, but soon finds that someone or something took it out. Frank follows the wreckage and finds Calder underground, masked in darkness. Although he can't get a good look at the monster, another strange zombie, one with immense speed and power, attacks him. After Frank takes out this zombie and several others like it, he receives a call from Obscurus's research director, Dr.
The other games felt more, I'm saying felt like I played them, but from what he showed, they look more arcadey. This game looks like it's more like slow, I'm not gonna lie.
Dr. Diane Blackburn, the woman he and Vic saw in the surveillance footage back at the secret base. Frank agrees to meet with Blackburn, who promises information in exchange for evacuation by the ZDC. When he reaches her location, however, Frank is startled to see her tied to a chair. Suddenly, a gun is pressed up against his head, and he turns to see it's held by his former student, Vic Chu. Frank argues with Vic over her choice of methods, eventually letting her leave with her gun while he stays with Blackburn. Blackburn reveals to Frank that Obscurus's research dates back to a project that was abandoned 15 years prior, around the time of the original outbreak. Frank soon learns that the project was conducted by none other than Dr. Barnaby, in a secret lab that Obscurus is obsessively trying to find. Blackburn tells Frank to look for the lab at a nearby winery, and Frank heads out, distracting Obscurus so Blackburn can escape in the process. At the winery, Frank finds Barnaby's lab, but unfortunately, Obscurus has beaten him to the punch, confiscating everything.
Wow.
Brad surmises over the radio that they must have taken it back to the secret base, but Frank notices another door in Barnaby's lab. He cracks the password and enters, finding a giant machine on the other side. Frank enters the machine to inspect it, but accidentally activates it. A swarm of the mutated zombies attack him, and he's forced to fight them off as he awaits for the system to reboot to open the doors to escape. Afterward, Frank meets back up with Hammond to hopefully recruit her to help him break into the base. However, he quickly learns from her that Tom went mad with power and started to lock up other locals in his farm. Frank assists Hammond in moving the remaining survivors to a pool hall, and she returns the favor by helping him blast his way into the Obscurus base. There, Frank finds evidence that the Obscurus research project has something to do with zombies regaining mental function. After watching some surveillance footage from just before the outbreak, Frank finally learns what Calder is. In the footage, Obscurus Lance Corporal Calder finds Barnaby's research and downloads it to his exosuit before finding the large machine in his lab. A container Barnaby was using to store a strain of the parasite he was experimenting on then bursts open, killing and turning Calder's men before infecting him as well. As the parasites overwhelm him, however, he is able to get inside and activate the machine's test chamber. The combination of the infection, as well as whatever effect the machine has, then turns him into the monster Obscurus begins to search for. The machine has test strain of the parasite he was experimenting on, then bursts open, killing and turning Calder's men before infecting him as well. As the parasites overwhelm him, however, he is able to get inside and activate the machine's test chamber. The combination of the infection, as well as whatever effect the machine has, then turns him into the monster Obscurus begins to search for. Frank attempts to escape the lab, but his progress is stopped by Commander Fontana herself. Fontana reveals that Obscurus's original plan was to continue Barnaby's research into using zombism to create some kind of immortality treatment, but they have since shifted their focus to using it to create semi-intelligent zombies for cheap labor. Frank defeats Fontana in combat just as Calder bursts into the area, still donning an exosuit. Fontana rushes at him with a grenade in hand, and it explodes, killing her and scaring Calder off, allowing Frank to escape safely. Outside the base, Frank gets a distress call from Hammond, whose war with Tom has escalated, with the man pinning her squad down. Frank finds where Tom is planning to execute Hammond and ambushes him. After freeing Hammond from his grasp, the pair are able...
He really started and ended the series, is what I was saying.
...to finally kill Tom. Hammond and her group then offer to help Frank get back to the sewers where he can pursue Calder. Frank soon finds Calder, surprisingly speaking in English to his group of mutated, or rather, evolved zombies. Calder then prepares to destroy the drive of Barnaby's research to prevent mankind from using it, but Frank throws a rock at him, causing Calder to drop it. Frank grabs the hard drive, then makes a mad dash to escape, as Calder's zombies give chase while he throws explosives at Frank. Eventually, Frank is able to escape safely with the hard drive, and he examines its contents. After learning that it contains all of Barnaby's research and realizing that it will put Frank back on the top of the journalism community, however, he finds himself held at gunpoint once again by Vic.
Oh my gosh, bro.
Vic demands Frank hand over his camera, as well as
she is so weird, bro.
All of
It's the third time she's done something like this.
Barnaby's data, stating that this time they're going to do it the right way and not just sell the story to the highest bidder. Vic runs off and Frank gives chase. Before Frank can catch Vic, however, Calder finds her first.
Wow.
Calder takes Frank's camera and destroys it, breaking the chain, as the evolved zombie puts it. Frank then battles Calder, but finds himself extremely outmatched. Vic recovers and offers her help, unlocking a gate to allow Frank to don an exosuit that's inside. Vic tries to provide an escape for Frank by hijacking a breaker box, but gets electrocuted, knocking her out and leaving Frank to handle things himself. Frank finally defeats Calder, with the zombie's last words being, "The chain remains." Frank rushes over to Vic and carries her to Brad.
All right.
Sometime later, she awakens and reveals to Frank that she had taken the SD card containing all of the data out of Frank's camera before Calder took it. The pair then agree to collaborate on the story together, splitting everything 50-50. Frank, Vic, and Brad then fight their way to the roof of the mall for helicopter evac. When they get there, Frank holds off a zombie attack as they await the chopper. Brad and Vic get on board, but Frank is pulled from the chopper by a massive group of zombies,
of course,
evolved and otherwise. He tells them to keep their eye on the prize, and Vic and Brad then fly off to safety, living to tell Frank's tale.
What? Wait, hold on. No, hold on. That's not the end. Frank rising? Yo, if they do this fake out death again.
Unbeknownst to Brad and Vic, Frank survived the zombie attack. Somewhat.
Yo, I'm not gonna lie. He did say somewhat. I'm gonna let him finish. But they did this same fake out death like in 3 out of the 4 games. The first one, it was like it ended with him screaming, surrounded by the zombies and stuff, and then they did that comic where he like gets away, and then the second one, it's like it's like he gets left, and then they do a DLC where he's just good, and then this one, let me see how he got out of this one. Let's see.
After the attack, the experimental wasps enter Frank, and he awakens as one of the evolved zombies. He goes back into the mall, but Hammond comes across him and shoots him. Recognizing him, Hammond takes him to Dr. Blackburn, who insists that the treatment she was researching is working on Frank. Despite Hammond's objections, Blackburn allows Frank, who has retained his intelligence and personality, to go freely on his own, but warns him that the government will be firebombing the city in just 90 minutes to cover up Obscurus's mess. Blackburn leads Frank to Calder's body and has him absorb the wasps from his corpse to alter the DNA in his zombie parasites.
Wow.
The pair then realize that Frank must return to Barnaby's machine to be cured. Frank finds more wasps across Willamette and absorbs them as he collects items for Blackburn to use Barnaby's machine. After retrieving all of Blackburn's supplies, as well as finding all of the immature queen or princess wasps in the area, Frank reunites with Hammond, who plans to hijack an Obscurus evac helicopter. After proving to Hammond that he isn't a danger, Frank helps her and her group hold off Obscurus forces as they launch a surprise attack. Afterward, Blackburn reveals that she had tipped Obscurus off about the hijacking, hoping to study Frank instead of curing him. Frank deals with Obscurus to clear a path for Hammond, and then finds Blackburn. Frank threatens to kill Blackburn, forcing her to help him use the treatment machine to cure himself. After successfully activating the machine and returning himself to his human form, curing him of zombieism for the second time, Frank is able to get to the evac helicopter, finally escaping Willamette with Blackburn, Hammond, and the other survivors. Afterward, Frank writes a book about his...
I wonder if... So, one or two things. Either they wanted him to die, but then they didn't want to stick to it. Because they didn't want, like, people to be mad, I guess. Because he's, like, the main character. So they just folded and went back on it. Either that, or they just wanted, like, they had that idea for DLC already. They wanted, like, a cheap DLC. Because really, it's the same ending. You just, like, imagine that in the context of it not being DLC and it just being, like, part of the main game, though. Because it's like, I don't know. It's weird. It's hard to explain.
His experiences as a zombie, but the public don't believe a word of it. Frank's collaboration with Vic Chu, however, finally exposes the government's repeated involvement in zombie research, as well as the outbreaks. With the truth finally revealed, Frank West becomes a household name once again.
Wow, what an ending.
This brings us to the end of the Dead Rising storyline, with the stories of Frank West, Chuck Green, and Nick Ramos now told. We can only wait and see if Capcom returns to their world to tell another story, be it a continuation.
I mean, realistically, they probably will, but I don't think they need to. It seemed like it ended in a good spot. It had a good ending. Like eventually they're definitely gonna do it. They're probably gonna reboot it, but it had like a...
Or perhaps a what-if style tale, much like the one last game I'm going to go over. As mentioned in the intro, Dead Rising 2 Off the Record is a non-canon retelling of the story of Dead Rising 2, presenting what could have happened if it was Frank West in that scenario instead of Chuck Green. Seeing as this will retread a lot of what I had already covered in the Dead Rising 2 section of this video, I'll be breezing over quite a bit, focusing more on the differences in the plot than the similarities. With that being said, let's get right into the story of Dead Rising 2 Off the Record. After the events in Willamette, Frank West becomes somewhat of a celebrity, but after several scandals lead to his public image getting sullied, he falls into financial ruin. Several scandals lead to his public image getting sullied.
Bro.
Somewhat of a celebrity, but after several scandals lead to his public image getting
doesn't say.
Sullied, he falls into financial ruin. In an attempt to recover what he's lost, Frank decides to get back in the game by heading to Fortune City and participating in the Terror is Reality game show, where he wrestles and kills zombies in a ring. While Frank wins the competition, as well as the prize money, he feels more like a loser after realizing he's further given up his dignity. When Frank goes to exit the arena, he spots the show's host, Tyrone TK King, speaking with another man about something very important, but very secretive. Frank photographs them and notices that the second man is carrying some kind of explosive device. Frank is caught by some of TK's security and is forced to fight them before entering an elevator to leave the arena, brushing with TK's twin assistants on the way. An explosion rocks the elevator, and when Frank exits, he finds all of Fortune City now overrun with zombies. Frank makes his way to an emergency shelter, meeting his fellow survivors, including Fortune City security officer Raymond Sullivan and the Cure zombie rights activist leader Stacy Forsyth. Frank, still infected from Willamette, needs Zombrex, and Stacy agrees to help him find some.
Yeah.
After getting the Zombrex, Frank explores Fortune City and finds several psychopaths roaming, including Chuck Green, who lost his daughter and now cares for a doll in her stead. Frank soon sees a news report by Rebecca Chang, showing the man he saw talking to TK planting the bomb that started the outbreak. The media blames Cure for the action, and Stacy recruits Frank's help to clear their name. Frank eventually comes across Rebecca, offering to collaborate with her on the story. Frank brings Rebecca back to the safe house, and they agree to work with Stacy to find the truth. Eventually, Stacy and Frank watch the man Frank
He
saw
was trying to
speaking
get a
with
bag.
TK on one of the security monitors. Stacy states that he's a member of Cure, leading Frank to suspect that maybe the group did have something to do with the outbreak after all. While Stacy states that he must have been a plant to set them up, Frank decides to find the man himself to question him. Frank eventually finds him in a bathroom, clearly having lost his sense of judgment. Frank is forced to fight the man, and in his defeat, he takes his own life.
Wow.
Frank storms back to Stacy, who
guess this is
maintains
that
Cure's
dude.
innocence before spotting something going on at the maintenance tunnel. Frank heads there to find TK moving equipment on a train, and he hops onto it to learn from TK that he had paid the Cure member to start the outbreak. Frank isn't able to learn much more as TK breaks away from him. Frank returns to Stacy and Rebecca to explain that TK is behind the outbreak, then stops his men from stealing from the casino's vaults.
Okay.
Later, TK captures Rebecca, telling Frank to bring a ransom to a nightclub that night. Frank does so and fights the twins, who have Rebecca hostage. After defeating the twins, Frank stops TK from escaping in a helicopter, capturing him and bringing him back to the safe house. The military arrive soon after and begin to clear out the area, but a noxious gas arises from the sewers and causes the zombies to grow stronger. Rebecca gets caught by the military and Frank rescues her, bringing her back to the safe house. There, Frank determines that TK was instructed to set up Cure by somebody else, indicating some larger operation. Zombies attack the safe house, forcing Frank to act quickly to prevent them from fully breaching their security. In the process, however, TK is bitten and infected. Frank gives
Wow.
TK some Zombrex, ensuring that he'll be able to survive the events to pay for his crimes. After learning of an imminent bombing of Fortune City by the military, Frank decides to head underground to find
So I guess it doesn't, like, I think in the original game, not the second one, they gave you a choice of what to do. It looks like in this one, I guess they don't give you a choice. I don't know.
the source of the gas. Frank soon traces the gas to a large machine, operated by Phenotrans employees. Frank clears out the zombies and employees in the area, taking their computer as evidence as he leaves. As Rebecca investigates the computer to learn that Phenotrans is behind the outbreaks in order to drive up their stock prices, Stacy suddenly grabs Sullivan's pistol and shoots Rebecca. Stacy then shoots Sullivan as well, revealing that she was part of TK's plot, but releasing the tape wasn't part of her plan.
Wow.
Stacy is able to rush off, and Frank follows, finding her in a theme park operating a large mech. Stacy reveals that she was truly a Phenotrans plant all along,
Yeah, for sure,
manipulating
for sure.
Cure to create outbreaks all over the country to drive up demand for Zombrex. Frank is then able to defeat Stacy's mech, leading to her death. In the wake of the battle, he calls Channel 6 Action News and tells them the truth, asking them to come save the survivors. Frank soon learns that TK is missing, however, and gets a call from him, revealing that not only is Rebecca Chang alive, but that he has her captive. Frank then works for TK reluctantly to get him various supplies before he meets him face to face. Frank defeats TK in battle, ultimately killing him. This allows Frank to save Rebecca, and the pair leave the arena, walking towards an unknown future together.
Wow. Ah!
And with
Why
that,
did that Loki
I've covered the
scare
storyline of
Man.
Dead Rising.
That Loki made me mad. Like, that actually scared me a little. That's a good video, though. It's a good video. I already liked it, but that's a very good video. Shout out to Suggestive Gaming, bro. Yeah, I've had that. Hold on. Let me pause this.
The snack that smiles back.
Bro, I've had that in my
Look that way.
in my tabs. I've had that tabbed up for a long time, for real. Then I finally got to watch it, and I fall asleep halfway through, which was kind of crazy, but it's all right, honestly. I'm gonna take a bathroom break. then I'm gonna be right back. I might play Wordle, or I might just end stream. I don't know. It depends how I feel. Let me do this. Math break. Alright, I'll be right back. Alright. Now. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna do a Wordle and then I'm gonna end the stream. I'm not even gonna do basketball piddle or anything because I'm very tired. So I'm gonna just do this Wordle and I'm gonna end the stream. So let's go. I'm not gonna watch these. Could have been. I'm gonna watch them next stream. But yeah, let's see. All right. You know what word I start off with every time? Ado. Whoa. What are you telling me there? I don't like that. Let's say bird. Let me not even. Wired. Oh my gosh. If I get it second try. Okay, I guess not. Oh, literally. I don't know how I missed that. Let's see. Give me so I has to be. There's no way it starts with I, right? Let's try it. In des indie indus in de inden inden. Oh no, bruh. In the oh my, that's not it, but I gotta get something going, bro. Regardless, I gotta get some. Okay, I know it starts with DE, and I know there's T, so there's not much it could be. There's not a lot it could be, and the I isn't right here, and the T isn't right here. Did, dead, dead, debit. Perfect. Ball game. Great word. Splendid word. Great word. All right. Love. Gotta love Wordle. You know. Yeah. I'm not even about to do a long outro. I'm not about to chat, bro. That's the end of the stream, bro. Not the longest stream, but I kind of had to stream because you know I fell asleep halfway through last stream. Kind of awkward, so I had to finish that video. I'm gonna just end them.